I feel like one of my main jobs is modeling what it looks like to pray. You know, I mean, prayer is not natural in our secular culture. It's not something that we ever do. We don't sing together in rooms, God forbid. So these are something like we're already asking a lot of people when they come into the space. I mean, actually, it's asking a lot for people to put their clothes on and leave the house. That's a lot. You know, it's a lot to ask. I mean, think about when you're home at night, you don't want to leave, and then it's Friday night in the traffic. And we're asking a lot for them to come into the space. And most people, when they walk into a synagogue, they have some kind of baggage where they don't feel quite legitimate enough to be there for whatever reason.
That was Seattle-based singer-songwriter, prayer leader, producer, instrumentalist Chava Mirel, discussing the song Mercy, which I wrote after being inspired by Psalm 57. I'm Shep Rosenman. This is The Rest is Commentary, where we discuss what songs inspired by the Psalms or Tehillim inspire in my guests. Chava is known for her rich, soulful vocals and luminous presence. She brings together jazz, world, and Jewish sacred music with messages of hope, compassion, and connection. She's a multi-award-winning musician, composer, and spiritual leader, and is the featured vocalist for the acclaimed jazz fusion group Duende Libre, co-founder of the powerhouse trio New Moon Rising, and a beloved artist in residence in communities across the country. Her albums Source of Love and Into the Light explore both liturgical and universal themes, and she's got a brand new EP coming in 2025. Chava also serves as music director at Temple Beth Am in Seattle, where she lives with her partner and child. You can find out more about Chava by going to her website, www.chavamirel.com. Chava and I will be talking about the relationship between Judaism and political identity, how our actions can reflect the teachings of Torah, the essence of Judaism requiring moral and ethical conduct, even in the political and military spheres, personal and communal responsibility, hope and future generations, and so much more. Let's start off by listening to Mercy.
You're ducking the heat till the storm blows over. No one's kicking you, there's no tormentor. No flicking tongues like shiny tiny razors, overloading, keeping you in your chaos. You're ducking the heat till the storm blows over. You're laying low and your heart beats slow. Did you give in to being alone? You think you're holed up in the top dog's grotto, fingers smelling stain of yellow tobacco. You're laying low and your heart beats slow. You need some mercy. You need some mercy. If there's a cosmic overlord above, you wanna know why it destroyed your love. You need some mercy. Don't fear the reaper or the chaos keeper. Don't look any deeper, cause the price gets steeper. You're in this cave, yeah, you know you got robbed. Now it's time to ask, what are you afraid of? Don't fear the reaper or the chaos keeper. You need some mercy. You need some mercy. If there's a cosmic overlord above, you wanna know why it destroyed your love. You need some mercy. Took your limbs out of the celestial void. friends and sisters, mothers and brothers, your divine love needs to get back on the loose. Scattering jazz evokes your Dr. Seuss. Drag your soul from its seat, lay down a heavenly beat. Belt out a psalmody, invite a little anarchy. Rumbling guitars, divine distortion. Wail on a piano like Jelly Roll Morton. Drag your soul from its seat, lay down a heavenly beat. You need some mercy. You need some mercy. If there's a cosmic overlord above, you wanna know why it destroyed your love. You need some mercy. You need some mercy. You need some mercy.
Hey there, Chava.
Hello.
It's very nice to see you again. I believe the first time I encountered you was at Limud Seattle. So thank you so much for joining me. The way this works is I ask you one question. The theory behind the question is the Psalms were inspired. You know, the root of the word inspiration has something divine about it, like it's coming from God. David was inspired to write the Psalms. The Psalms, in turn, inspiring me to write at least 150 songs. I'm about 120 of the way done, but I think I may surpass 150. And I offer each song to a friend, new or old, or mentor. And you're somewhere like you're a mentor in that I've been listening to you for years, not realizing the Limud Seattle piece of this. Like I first heard your Achas Sha'alti or Achat Sha'alti. I don't know if you're a Sa or a Ta. When it first came out, I was like, oh my God, this person is amazing. She's right up my alley. I could hear the jazz in that. And I think even more recently, you seem to be doubling down on the jazz, but we'll talk about that maybe. The question is, what did the song inspire in you?
This may seem a little strange, but it really felt like Coen Brothers material to me. You know, it was like an anti-hero figure. And, you know, for whatever reason, I saw imagery that was very cinematic. It felt very cinematic to me, but with that kind of, you know, it had a Roadhouse vibe to it, and it felt a very Americana vibe to it. And I heard that as a part of a Coen Brothers soundtrack. So
I love that. That makes my day. I hope they pick it up too. How does that relate? How do you relate to that in the Psalms, which people tend to think about as having so much gravitas? And here I am doing what I did.
The Psalms to me are the most human texts that we have. So to me, I don't hear it with gravitas. I hear it with that it's an expression of humility. And when I hear those writings, it sounds to me like someone who's often in existential crisis, just wondering what it is to exist.
Right.
And there's a lot of naturalistic imagery. So it feels like it's very primal in a way. When you gave me that song, it really vibed to me with that primal energy of, you know, just stripped down humanity.
Yeah. So throughout the year, like I'm writing songs like when they come to me. I'm writing songs when I say, ooh, I want to learn this Tehillim. Let's see what comes out of that. But I'm also writing songs in something called Fearless Songwriting, which is a Facebook group run by my friend Timmy Reardon. And listeners of this podcast will have heard that phrase 100 times by now. And it's 6 times a year he posts a prompt and you respond to the prompt. This song is not a Fearless song, but another thing I do is I take kind of songwriting workshops with various of my mentors from Song School, which is part of the Planet Bluegrass community. Mm-hmm. And this one came out of a Shanna in a Dress prompt. The prompt was, write about an imagined scenario with a real person in your life. Use 2 melismas in the chorus, at least 5 notes on 1 syllable. This was a Taylor Swift songwriting workshop, and there was I forget which song it was connected to. And so I made a list of people and scenarios I wanted to write about. We have a very close friend who died a year and a half ago, and his wife basically was really struggling. So that's the real life scenario. And I was writing to her, and I had just done 3 or 4 days. A lot of the songs that I've been writing have been grief-oriented, or about Ivan, or about Leo, or Rosie. Rosie is their eldest. Haven't yet written about their other 2 kids. And I felt like I need to make this a little bit lighthearted. And I found 57. And then I was like, how do I lighten the mood? This is too serious. Mm. And while the Coen brothers did not come up, I'm a massive fan of William S. Burroughs. Mm. And so I started, I pulled out my Naked Lunch. I listened to The Disposable Heroes of Hypocrisy. And I started grabbing language that I thought that he used, or that I thought he might have used. And then I did the unthinkable and went to Perplexity and said, zhuzh this up with more William Burroughs. And it gave me some ideas, and that turned into more ideas. And that's how we landed where we did.
Cool backstory.
But at the end of the day, the question is, it seems to have moved you without the backstory, or it was your vibe, you resonated with it. I forget the language you use.
I think it's that yearning quality, which I hear in all the Psalms. It's like a yearning for an answer, yearning for mercy, yearning for understanding. That's what I heard that, I feel like is also part of Americana. So
yeah,
I felt like those texts were really compatible with each other. I mean, that's that Coen brothers thing, at the same time, you're on a global level. These are like global issues. And then there's going to be something that they throw in that's almost like a slapstick, and it's that balance of bringing you down to earth, grounding you back in the fact that we're all just silly and we don't,
right.
We can't take ourselves too seriously.
Do you do that in your music? When I think about it, I think of jazz, and I think of roots, and I think of earnest. I think of reggae too. Is that right? Yeah. There's some reggae stuff that I've heard of yours. Is comedy and humor and parody part of your world?
I mean, I have to be honest. I wish that I brought more comedy. I appreciate comedy, and I'm just not that funny, so, but I am irreverent, and I don't want to take myself too seriously. And I think that's something I struggle with as a, spiritual, quote unquote, spiritual artist, is that there's an earnestness that, first of all, for my generation is not really appropriate. My generation was anti-earnest. And so it was a big barrier for me to get past, coming from the grunge and punk and those backgrounds, to be able to do something that has the level of earnestness that spiritual music has to have.
Well, that's the same balancing act that you articulated about the song and the Psalms. You have the humor and casual in the presentation, but the song's a little bit more serious. It's that polarity that allows it to be received because it has the mixture of both.
Yeah. I mean, the world also requires different things at different times. I mean, when I wrote Achat Sha'alti in 2017, we had a very different world than we have now. And I think there's more need we have more needs that have to be met. We have more human needs that are unmet, I think, now.
What do you mean by the world is different now and we have different needs?
There had been a deeper understanding at one point about self-compassion, how everything is connected, how what we do here impacts those over there. So we had started to evolve toward that culturally at a point, and now we have backed away from that, which it's totally fine. Everyone's on their own path. But when I'm working with especially young people, like I see that they still have the same human needs that people have always had, and they're in this kind of vacuum where that they're not being met. I mean, they're just not. There's no soft place to fall, really. So now the songs that feel comforting are much more important and necessary.
Maybe we'll even get you to come to song school.
I've heard a lot of great things.
Do you remember from whom?
Over the years, I've just heard people mention it, and it's like as if it were kind of the highest level of that kind of activity. Like that's the height.
There are all these songwriting workshops in LA and Italy, and like I just want to do something else. And I came back and I was like, oh my God, I just scratched the surface. How do I leave now?
Totally. I mean, if you're really, it's a retreat into yourself.
Yeah.
Whereas the other conferences, the Chava Nashira, which I've been on faculty, previous years, is a beautiful thing, but you're all like learning external material.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's the language of creation versus the language of consumption, right? Because in Chava Nashira, I mean, you were all singing together, but it's about how to create a consumer experience. I mean, you have to tell me because I've never been there. I still want to go.
Yeah, that's not what it is. It's about how to be a spiritual leader through music and use that as a tool in your leadership. So, rabbis who are not musicians foremost, but they still can use the skills in their leadership. So it's really like a leadership training thing that uses music as the tool and there's a lot of skills, but it's not for consuming.
That's what I mean, though. You're teaching a skill to help people consume.
The people are not consuming. They have to integrate the skills to help their leadership.
But the ultimate audience is consuming.
I wouldn't say consuming.
No kidding.
It's prayer is not consumption.
Say more.
Consumption, which I associate with capitalism, and I know that there are other ways of using that, but it's really just you pay a ticket price, you go and you are entertained. Prayer requires both directions, the people coming in, it's a participatory, and they don't have to participate by saying anything out loud.
Right.
But it's like you're bringing your prayers into the pot. And without your prayers, it's like just watching a movie.
Right. Okay. So I think we hit we're actually saying similar things, but I think I found the language difference. And I think that your model is very beautiful, that even simply showing up and listening is not consuming, it's participating. And for me, as someone who's been on both sides of this, as a prayer leader and congregant/participant, I feel that the structure of most Jewish prayer is too reliant on passive participation. I think that there are some very valid reasons for that. Some of it is not everybody knows the music, not everybody knows the liturgical text, Hebrew or English. Not everybody knows how to speak Hebrew. So there are all these barriers to entry that push people down the runway of passive participation. And I think that's what I meant by consumption.
That is literally the thesis of the discussion that we have the entire time at Havana Shira, which is how do we serve the community, and how do we assess the needs of the people who are in the room at that time and help to serve them,
Yeah.
And, it just like, my congregation that I serve is Reformed, so I use a lot of their materials. And one of their pages, it says, each of us enters the sanctuary with a different need. This is at the beginning of the Shabbat service, and it says, some are here to celebrate, Simcha. Some are here because they're mourning. It's a yard site, or someone has just passed away. Some more people are here searching for answers, you know what I mean? And that it says all are welcome here on the page. But what this is for people who are in the service industry, like ourselves, it's acknowledging the vast spectrum of needs that are coming into any room at any time, and how do we serve all those needs so that everyone feels transformed by the experience.
Do you include yourself in everyone on that?
100%, yes. If I'm not doing it, then it's like I'm just reading lines from a play, I've seen TV shows where they depicted a bar mitzvah ceremony, right? They weren't really becoming bar mitzvah. They were actors, And so if I'm not praying and I'm not having the experience of what the liturgy is providing, then I'm not really doing the thing.
How do you do that? Well, how do you hold both the product and the process in your heart, in your mind, in your spirit at the same time?
I feel like one of my main jobs is modeling what it looks like to pray. Prayer is not natural in our secular culture. It's not something that we ever do. We don't sing together in rooms, God forbid. So these are something like we're already asking a lot of people when they come into the space. Actually, it's asking a lot for people to put their clothes on and leave the house. That's a lot, it's a lot to ask. Think about when you're home at night, you don't want to leave, and then it's Friday night in the traffic. And we're asking a lot for them to come into the space. And most people, when they walk into a synagogue, they have some kind of baggage where they don't feel quite legitimate enough to be there for whatever reason. I don't have that. I'm in the privileged position of being a rabbi's kid. I could walk into any synagogue and lie down on the floor. I feel like so at home there. But I know that 99% of Jewish people, they don't actually feel that comfortable in synagogues. So it's already so many barriers before they even start praying.
Let's unpack that for a minute, because I did not grow up a rabbi's kid, but I grew up in the synagogue, and in theory should be very comfortable wherever. There was a period where I was only comfortable in Orthodox synagogues, shuls. And then, through the Limud movement, I got opened up to all sorts of prayer. I found the beauty in Debbie Friedman. I found the beauty in Alicia Joe Rabin's, in you, and like all these, Joe Buchanan, like all these different approaches. And I was like, okay, it's all prayer. And for me, like the language that I like to use is, we say prayer, but what we mean is prayer. I am a prayer. And so, and that ties back to Va'ani Tfilati, right? I am my prayer. And it doesn't end there. I am my prayer lecha, et ratzon. I'm my prayer to you in this time of ratzon, of desire, of perfectness, however you want to translate ratzon in that context. So if that's your worldview, then every moment is prayer, because it's every moment you have. So to close the loop on that, because that was a little bit of a Simon Rosenman or Talmudic digression, for me, notwithstanding that comfort on one level, I will still sometimes walk into shul and say, what is my role here? And that is a question of discomfort. And it may be, how do I fit in? I'm used to being a prayer leader, used to a different melody. It may be, I'm used to being on the board. It may also be, I'm pissed at you, God. I'm not sure where God is in the mix. Any of those discomforts will bubble up for me. And then for me, the process is show up, get present, be the prayer. Right, like that, and that's where it comes back to Va'ani Tfilati.
I would say that in my personal experience, I do not work with a lot of people who come from Orthodox backgrounds. And that's because, I would never be leading prayers in an Orthodox environment. So those are not the spaces where I would get hired. And so usually I'm actually working with Jewish people who grew up knowing that they were Jewish and being different from their peers, but not really having all of the background and the tools to fill in that space of what it is that makes them different. I mean, they don't have all of the verses of the, Matovu memorized. You know what I mean? So they don't have access to that metaphor or that piece of wisdom even to have this conversation.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so how do we make space for them and give them enough to latch onto that feels familiar and give them new information at the rate that they can, integrate it? I mean, those are the concerns of someone in like a progressive synagogue.
Sure.
One thing I wanted to say is that really the thing about davening or praying or being a prayer is that my idea about that is like going to the gym, the equivalent of going to the gym for life. And so what you were saying is, how do you become a prayer? How do you live that life? And I'm wanting people to know, and this is something I learned from my mentor, but my best friend, Eliana Light, who you should talk to. She's an expert. She's a philosopher.
Oh, I love that.
She's brilliant and she's got a lot of credentials. So she's really very, very worth talking to. One of the things that she teaches is that going to shul or doing tefillah is like going to the gym. You don't go to the gym so that you can perfect the leg machine. You go to the gym so that your legs are strong so that you can do life, whatever life requires of you. And that's what we're doing with tefillah. We're exercising the muscles of gratitude, of noticing the beauty around us. Like it says in Achat Sha'alti, that, if I only had this muscle of presence, if I could strengthen that muscle of being present,
right.
Thus I would be able to witness the beauty that's already there, but I just can't tap into it because I don't have access to the skill.
Right. That's really beautiful, and it connects so deeply to the message of Rabbi Browse's book, The Amen Effect.
Yeah.
Just showing up. It's really powerful. I love her message because it chooses hope. I disagree with some of the specifics, but the fact that she's still choosing hope in this moment in time, I had another podcast conversation yesterday with a longtime friend of mine, and I don't know what sequence these will be released in, so I'm not going to give any other details, but I left it feeling very bleak because this friend had no hope. And I don't know, how do you live without hope?
It's been harder lately to find those sources of hope because it looks like things are getting worse, and it's been a letdown. There have been a lot of letdowns, things that we had faith in, that we thought that we could depend on, have kind of fallen through or fallen apart in some ways. I have hope.
How do you have hope?
The way that I have hope is I have certain kind of figures that I follow that are very inspiring to me, and they give me hope.
Do you care to share who those are?
One person who I've followed for decades and who has always been like someone who I aspired to be like and kind of wanted to follow in their footsteps is this artist named Achinoam Nini. Noah.
She's great.
Do you know her?
Yeah, I do.
So I love her music so much. And as a young person, I didn't see a lot of fabulous singers who were like myself. They were often different from me. But she was one who I kind of saw myself in her, even as far back as, I don't know, the 80s or maybe the 90s. I don't remember when I first discovered her. But in any case, I've just been following her for a really long time. And she's a very, very hopeful figure. She does a lot of peace advocacy work. And she is putting together a peace summit in Florence in May called Reimagine Peace. And she's all over the globe doing this advocacy work And it's just so beautiful. It's so hopeful,
For sure. Do you have thoughts about how to reimagine peace?
I do. I will say, putting out there from the very beginning of the conversation that I am a leftist, like very strong leftist, and I always have been. I am one of those people that I don't have the whatever it is that makes people distrustful.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have that. So I a great person to have on your team because I don't turn jaded and I still continue to believe. And, it helps me that I work with little kids because the little kids, they haven't been turned against hope. They see all of the infinite possibilities of life.
You're still living in Blake's songs of innocence rather than the songs of experience.
Yes, but the innocence is the true reality. Their
Mm-hmm.
reality is true because humanity is evolving. And what we in previous generations couldn't even imagine,
Mm-hmm.
they feel intuitively and they're just connected with it. So I'm trying to help them to keep that alive. And I taught some kids the song Aniva Ata yesterday. We had a little modern Hebrew club at the Hebrew school. I don't know why they chose that elective, these kids. And so I taught them Aniva Ata, and it says,
We'll change the world.
Yeh lanu ra, ein davar, ze lo nora. Okay, so that's the second verse.
All right, you want to translate for the guests?
I mean, it's a little bit of idiomatic Hebrew. And so that's why I wanted to teach them that, because I was showing them that this word norah, which in biblical Hebrew means awe, and it's in micha mocha, it's a word that we use, but how awe has become a slang term in English, like awesome. Like, oh, that's awesome. And in Hebrew, it turned into a phrase, ze lo nora, which means like, it ain't no thing, or,
Right.
Don't worry about it, And so like, it's saying, even if they say it's bad, even if they call us bad, it's no big deal. Like, don't worry about it. And so that's what I was trying to explain to the kids is like, if you have a vision for the world that kind of goes beyond what people see in this paradigm, they might even say you're bad for thinking that.
Wow.
And don't worry about that, because your vision is actually, it's what we need to go forward. None of us can move forward without that vision. So, so it's in all our texts. It was cool. It just kind of arose, but.
So you mentioned Achinoam Nini. Do you listen to Noga Erez at all?
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. What an artist.
We just saw her at the Fonda the other night. She was outstanding. The whole band was outstanding, but she's, lemala me'asara tfachim. Right? She's like above and beyond.
I mean, my husband sends me links of her all the time. I get links. People who are not Jewish send me her links because they encounter and they're like, have you heard of this person? This is, we didn't know Jewish people were so funky and awesome.
I don't take advantage of my position in the entertainment industry very often, but I actually looked her up, and she's represented at UTA, and I have some clients at UTA, and I asked UTA if they could get me like backstage pass. They could not, but I tried. That's how much of a fan I am.
That's amazing. Yeah, you got to keep trying on that one because she's pretty awesome.
Next time she's in LA. Okay, so what is it like to be, we had like a very, I would describe everything we talked about in terms of prayer leadership as earnest. Do you have to suppress your irreverence, or do you let it out from the bima?
I am so privileged that I don't have a title of rabbi, and I can say whatever I want from the bima, and I love that so much. So no, I speak from the heart, from the bima. I will make a joke if I think it's funny. My friend Alana Arian, if you ever get to talk to her, is literally the funniest person I've ever met. And she's like, her leadership is like a stand-up act. She'll be leading a service and it's like stand up. Every concert she does is like stand up. Anyway, so I'm surrounded by really funny, great people, but I just speak off the cuff from the Bima. And I'll say something like, I never noticed this before, but in this prayer, if you open to page 89 and look on this line, this Hebrew root, like whatever it is that just blew my mind. And I've read this prayer 875,000 times and I've never noticed this before. And so like, I'm just praying and I'm not shy about it, And so I'm in the privileged position of having a microphone in front of me.
Well, what you're articulating is this goes back to what you were saying before. You're modeling prayer. When you encounter the text, you share what you encounter and allow other people to have that encounter too.
Totally.
And over time, perhaps that builds the muscle in them that they can start playing and engaging as well.
Totally. And I feel like I'm hoarding if I don't, because I'm the one that knows the prayer well enough to find that thing. And so if I keep all of that to myself, and I am personally very delighted by it. I feel very delighted by the liturgy. I'm not tired of it. It's still working. Like every day I'm different and it just hits me different, So if I don't share that, then I feel like I'm like, keeping it to myself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I think as events happen, we change. It's not like that old river metaphor. So if you engage with the text with your new self, you get to create chidushim, new experiences. I had this conversation with my wife, and I don't think I've told this story on the podcast, but Sherry, she grew up a high holiday Jew. That's how she would describe it. There was no text study. There's very little prayer. You just show up. The cantor blathers at you. The rabbi blathers at you. Everything the cantor says is in another language you don't understand. You barely understand the English because it's somewhat coded, right? Because you've never studied the Bible. So she grew up with that, and then later in life promised her grandmother that she'd marry a Jewish guy. So there's that. Also promised her grandmother that she'd support Israel, right? So like these are elements of this, but those both could mean anything. She could have married a Jewish guy who never stepped foot into a shul. She could support Israel by giving $18 to the JNF, and that's it. Instead, her friend Eve said, "Oh, you promised your grandmother that you'd marry a Jewish guy? Why don't you join me at Kehilath Israel in the Palisades, one of the two buildings that survived in that area from the fire last January? I'm taking what Sherry calls the How to Be a Jew class. Essentially, it's a holiday cycle class. Maybe you'll meet a Jewish guy." So Sherry takes the class. We're already friends. In fact, not only are we friends, but I was working for her. We were not dating. I was dating other women. She was dating other guys. But she would come back from these classes knowing my background and talk to me about whatever she learned. So, and here's as metaphor, and I'm sure I'm making up the details. Sherry comes back from one of these classes and says, "Oh, I learned the Jewish credo." Like, we don't really have a credo. Do you mean the Shema? And she said, "Yeah, that." Like, "Oh, well, what did you learn?" If you listen deeply to yourself, you can find God. I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting." She goes, "What do you mean interesting?" Because Sherry's very inquisitive, right? "What do you mean interesting?" I'm like, it's a really interesting interpretation of the language. "Do you mean that's not what it means?" Like, yeah, that's not what it means. And nor is that what is the traditional understanding of what it technically means. She said, "Well, what does it mean?" Shema Yisrael, hear Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai, God, whatever, is our God. Mixing rachamim and compassion and judgment, right? The two types of characteristics of God. Adonai Echad. Going back to rachamim, Adonai is one or oneness. I said, that's technically what it means, but the rabbis say that's the Kabbalat Ol Malchut Shamayim. It's the acceptance of the yoke of heaven. And the acceptance of the yoke of heaven is surrounded by love. We start with Ve'ahavta start with Ahava Rabbah, say the Shema, and then we say V'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha. So you have this duality of God loving us and us loving God, and then we get into the conversation about the mitzvot. She's like, I don't know what you're talking about. That's far too esoteric for me. End of conversation. Okay, but we have those types of conversations over and over again. And she decides she wants to have her adult bat mitzvah. She's 31 or 30 or whatever. She has her adult bat mitzvah. She learns how to lane. You know, it's not the way I teach my bar and bat mitzvah students where I teach them how to lane. She learns from a tape how to lane 3, 4, 6 psukim verses. And she's very nervous about it because she doesn't know how to lane, right? So we have an argument about what to do over the high holidays. We're now dating at this point. We solve the fight. We compromise. We're going to go to my parents at the Young Israel of Far Rockaway, an Orthodox institution that birthed many great leaders, including Rabbi Bullman and Rabbi Goodman. And we're going to go to KI, Kilath Israel, for Yom Kippur. So that's the compromise. We go to the Young Israel, and Shari has her experience sitting next to my Aunt Marion because my mother doesn't go to shul. And it's upstairs, all the way in the back. And she's like, what do you like about this? And like, I kind of don't know how to explain it. So I just said, this is what I grew up with. It's what I'm comfortable with. And she said, like, the women were talking the whole time. I'm like, that's awful. I'm so sorry. And we kind of ended it there. 10 days later, Yom Kippur, we're at KI, and Stephen Carr Rubin, and they do their whole thing. And Shari turns to me at one point, and it's for Kol Nidre, and she says, isn't this beautiful? And she's beaming. She's so moved by it. And we're going to loop back to something we talked about earlier. I'm like, It is beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And she's like, what do you mean? Like, well, it's beautiful. You mean more than that. I know you. I'm like, I do, but I don't want to get into this now. Let's talk about it after you lane, because she was laning the next morning again. 3 more psukim or 6 more psukim, whatever it was. She goes up to lane. She sits down, and without taking a breath, after I say Yashikoach, she says, thank you. What did you mean last night? And I said, look, this is beautiful, but I feel like, going back to our conversation, I feel like a consumer. I could go to Katz. They're performing the prayers for me. I'm listening. I'm consuming what they have to say. There's no role for me in this particular prayer. Now, KI has a fabulous reputation, and I have perhaps a jaded view of this. Yeah, like I want everybody to participate. Like when I'm a Bal Tefillah, I lead with Karlbach. I get everybody singing, or I'll lead with Chava Mirel if I ever lead like that again. I lead Zoom Minyan at Ikar. It's very weird for me because that's just me, but people are moved by it and they're singing at home. Maybe like that's how I convince myself that it's okay. So I said that's the problem with it. And she said, well, why is that worse than the Young Israel Far Rockaway? I'm like, well, look, I can't speak to your experience because you don't speak Hebrew. You're all the way in the back. You're clearly not the intended audience. But for me, what's happening is there's a guy who's calling out the page numbers, and he does so in a beautiful musical voice that hopefully inspires you to double down into that section and really dive hard, whether you're singing along or you're simply mumbling along. You're going to that specific text, and it's up to me to make it meaningful or not. He may or may not add to that. He may or may not inspire that, but it's all about me. And she was like, oh, wow. She digests that, and like 20 minutes later, she turns to me quickly, and I see that there's heat in her face. And with gritted teeth, she says, I hate you. We're leaving. Let's go. You ruined this for me. But it's a great example of exploring the tension of being a prayer.
I mean, there's a place for everyone, but it's hard to find something that works for everyone, especially, people with such different backgrounds. Beautiful.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I spoke way too much there. I had one other question for you. Okay, strong leftist. That can mean anything. It could mean Jewish Voices for Palestine. It could mean secular humanist Jew. It could mean talking about American politics only. It could mean communists. It could mean socialist. There's any number of possibilities there. What do you mean?
I think what I mean is that I see humanity from a universalist perspective.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I subscribe to the philosophy of Rawls. Do you know the Rawlsian philosophy?
A little bit. Can you expand on it?
Okay, so I'm going to say what he said. He said a lot of different things, but one of the things that he said is when establishing a society, it should be established under a veil of ignorance. The concept of the veil of ignorance as to where you will fall in the hierarchy of society. And so as the person who's building the society, if you're not willing to be to inhabit any of the roles of that society, then it's not going to work, you know? And it's something that they do in kibbutz culture, you know, where everyone, you know, has to be willing to do any job.
Right.
And so I'm looking at that on a global level and knowing that anyone could be born anything, you know, none of us chose what we were born into. And that if, you know, God snapped their fingers and put you into a different position, all of a sudden, would you be happy with how the world is treating you? Would you be happy with how you treat people in that realm of society, you know? And if the answer is no, then like something needs to shift. And that's something that I ask myself a lot, you know, when I drive through town and I see so many unhoused people in the city of Seattle, Washington. Like it's a travesty. And knowing that even the Jewish community alone could solve the homeless problem in Seattle, Washington, because we have the resources. We do. I mean, we have the resources to do that in any city. And why don't we do that? If the Torah says more than any other mitzvah to protect the disenfranchised people who don't have access to resources, why are we having a luncheon where we raise money for the next building project? So that's something that I just think about a lot. And I've talked to a lot of rabbis. I haven't received any satisfying responses yet why our culture is kind of like this.
Our culture, American or Jewish?
I would say American Jewish culture. American Jewish culture has I feel like we have kind of stepped into wanting to be the most mainstream part of American culture because that's the most comfortable part, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And we've been able to pass as white in a way that gives us access to things that we hadn't had access to before. And now we're in this position where we're not in the bottom rungs.
Mm-hmm.
And how would we feel if we were, you know?
Right. I have so many things to say. We could go on for 3 or 4 hours more. We don't have time for that, but I am going to ask you a couple of follow-ups. One, pass as white suggests that you, like so I'm teeing this up, don't think we're white. Is that correct?
I mean, I would say that there were times in America, white is a construct. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it does not white doesn't exist, but there were times in American history where Jewish people were considered of their own race and couldn't really go into a store and be like just a regular. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're regular. Regular meaning main character. We're main characters in, you know, and that doesn't work for every person, obviously, but for a lot of Jewish people that's the life they lead. And I do not tell people I'm Jewish in an Uber or in any vulnerable situation. And before the rise in anti-Semitism, I also didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I never did. I knew that I didn't want to bring that up because I just knew it just created a vibe and I didn't want to go there. And I'm a professional Jewish person. So even for me, my name is Chava with the
chat. Yeah, exactly. Well, so how do you, what's your name in the cab or at Starbucks or
Chava?
Pete's?
Seattle thinks I'm Chava. They don't know. Only when I land in New York, I say, oh my gosh, everyone knows my name is pronounced Chava. They don't have to be Jewish. They just know. But in Seattle, I'm Chava and it's fine. I'm totally okay with that. But I actually have not experienced anti-Semitism personally. I may be the only person. Only time I've experienced anti-Semitism is from other Jewish people.
Wow. Say more about that if you don't mind.
My first encounter with anti-Semitism was when I first went to Israel when I was 17, and people told me I wasn't Jewish because I didn't believe that we received the mitzvot, that Moshe received the Torah. You know what I'm saying? Like I was more, a little like metaphorical about it, and they were like, "You're not Jewish." So I was told I wasn't Jewish.
Was this a Haredi person?
It was like yeshiva buchers, Anyway, they told me I wasn't Jewish. I was out. Like, because of my belief system, I wasn't accepted in that part of Jewish society, And there have been a lot of times when Jewish people have told me that I'm a bad Jew. I have not had that from the outside. I haven't had any non-Jews tell me that anything about me being Jewish. Like, it's interesting. Like, I'm always worried that someone's going to say something, and everyone has been very, very cool,
Wow.
Everyone's been very cool to me. I will say that I have a different definition of anti-Semitism than a lot of Jewish people.
What's that?
Well, I don't believe that a lot of things are anti-Semitism that Jewish people read as anti-Semitism.
Can you put some meat on the bones for that?
I'm really, really not sensitive to, like, for instance, people expressing like pro-Palestinian viewpoints. That does not seem anti-Semitic to me. Pro-Palestine does not equate to anti-Semitism for me.
I would agree with that.
But a lot of Jewish people feel it as anti-Semitism. And that's something that's happening in our culture right now.
For me, it depends what's said and how it's said.
Totally. That phrase is not anti-Semitic because actually this is a post from my hero Noah, who literally said in her post, "From the river to the sea, we should all be free." So from the river to the sea is not anything against Jewish people.
I don't object the from the river to the sea phrase. It's when you do the complete thing from the river to the sea.
That's too semantic. That's too semantic. Yes,
it can't
because
be.
You know what? Palestinians should be free from the river to the sea, just like Israelis should be free from the river to the sea. So I guess that's what I'm saying is like that. It's too semantic. People are trying to parse too much, and we don't need to do that because we're the superpower. We don't need to do that. We're in the position to be a little bit more forgiving, more compassionate, and say, whatever language we use, whatever language the people are using, they're not even alive anymore. So the words, that's getting too granular. Like, you know what I mean? We're talking about people's lives. And if it was you and your kids, you would say, I predict that if you were all of a sudden Palestinian, a Gaza person, you would say, I wish that the Jewish people would take compassion on us and see us as humans, just the way that we wished that the Germans would have done. Like, how many kids have come to me in Sunday school and said, why didn't the Germans stop them? Why didn't they see us as humans?
To what extent, in this example where I'm Gazan all of a sudden, and I'm saying I want the Israelis and Jews to show compassion, how am I dealing with Hamas?
I'm so sad about this, but if you study American U.S. policy throughout the decades, you will see a pattern of the U.S. government propping up governments in different countries, funding them, and then going to war against them. And that's the same thing that happened in Israel. And what's happening there, it's no different from this U.S. policy pattern that's been happening for decades. It's not really serving humanity. It's serving people at the top, not us, not you. It's not serving me. And that's what happened with Hamas in Israel. But, we're getting played, man. it's a sad thing. Their interests don't align with ours.
Their meaning Hamas's? Or the
No,
U.S. government?
The powers that be, the people who are making these policy decisions that impact us, that impact my students in the high school, that they're experiencing anti-Semitism because of a decision that has been made by someone who does not share their interest and does not look at, the greater good.
And is that because some of these decisions were made, 5, 10, 15, 25 years ago?
Yes.
Your analysis kind of lays the blame at the U.S. government, Republican or Democrat.
Actually, I'm not really. I'm getting so deep into this. I don't even know if you want to use this.
If there's anything, I can send this to you and you can tell me, Shep, don't put that up there. I mean, whatever you want.
No, I mean, this is how I feel, so, and I'm not really a political expert in any way, but what I am is I'm a Jewish spiritualist. My job has to do with Jewish spirituality. It has to do with trying to take Torah and our texts and our liturgy and bring them into life, into this day, into this era, into our lives in an embodied way. That's my job.
Right.
And so the whole project of Israel as a political entity doesn't really align with that. The people who founded Israel were not doing it as Jewish spiritual people. They were doing it as Jewish secular people.
Right.
They were doing
tolerating
it so that
the spiritualists.
They were doing it so they could be Jewish without being other. They could be the normal ones. And therefore, that was basically a rejection of everything that makes Judaism what it is. I don't believe that Judaism is compatible with being a political entity. I don't think that religion is a political thing. And I think it was, so let's say they're going to make a Jewish country, a Torah country, okay? Torah, our Torah, you and mine, the one we love, okay? Is there a line that they can cross in that project that we would say, this is no longer Torah? And I believe that line was crossed like decades ago.
2 last questions. Okay. And then we're really done.
Okay.
I love talking to you. I could talk to you for hours.
Same.
Okay. So these are big questions, even though they're 2 last questions. And you can give me the Al Regel Achat versions, or you can answer them fully, whatever you prefer. So the first question is, given that perspective, you still are a person who chooses hope. How do you do that? That's question 1. And it may be related to question 2. Tell me about God as you think God is and what your relationship is.
God is another word for things that we already know.
Wow.
God is another word for things that are everyday things. God is another word for connection. God is another word for community or love. The things that are highest values. I believe that God is a synonym for. You could say some people use the word Havaya, which is just a synonym for God, the word for being, So, that's what I feel about God. I think that God is the experience of just fully being and aliveness. And
it's beautiful.
Yeah. And as far as having hope, I have to do it because I have younger people who look up to me. And so therefore I am required to continue having faith in them.
I believe the children of the future.
Exactly. They don't know that song, but we do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, you're amazing. I love talking to you. There's so much depth and wisdom, and I love that you're willing and able to be so honest and plain spoken about it. It's great. Thank you.
I'm so grateful to you.
Oh, my pleasure. I want to leave you with a bracha as I often do. That's a blessing for those who don't speak Hebrew. May you continue to be the model of prayer and prayer with ease so that the rest of us can continue to model praying so that we can give you the energy to continue to have hope.
Can you hear our song? Thank you so much. What a beautiful blessing. I got chills.
Thanks so much for listening. Special thanks to Chava for joining me, to Devin Schwartz for his help in producing this episode, to E. Rose for his help producing the song and this episode, to Jessica Hannah Sweedler for her help on social media, to Liat Silver for designing the podcast logo, and to my wife Shari, who gives me everything, including the time, space, and support to make the music and this podcast happen. You can find Mercy and all of the other songs in this song cycle on most platforms that stream or download music, including Spotify and Apple. In the next episode of The Rest is Commentary, I will be talking with my friend and client, Brazilian director-producer Vicente Amorim. We discuss life transitions and the impact of ego, particularly in the context of parenting, the importance of self-awareness in guiding children through life's challenges, life's transitions as a constant part of growth, ego's influence on our decisions and relationships, the cruciality of self-awareness for personal development, understanding others' perspectives, how children learn simply from observing their parents, and so much more. All inspired by Vicente's thoughts after listening to Infinite Light, which I co-wrote with Liz Hanlon and was inspired by Psalm 36. Please join us.